Good morning, YouTube. This is Engineer Pat 5290, live in a very special place today. Today is Rail Fanning Saturday here in Baltimore, and here we are seeing Baltimore, Ohio GB40, number 3684, freshly repainted. This was the original GB40, was radio equipped. One of my very first B&O engine I have ever seen in my life. The paint job on this is very, very pretty. I'm just wondering who did all this work. As you can see there's the original numbering. I will look up the building information for this engine as well. Coming on around and take a look at some of the box cars. Come here and look at the tanker. Goodyear Chemical Division. It's pretty unusual to see that. Got the old Peril Marquis. They're a pre-seater railroad for the BNSF. I believe they're a pre-seater for the BNSF. And here's one of the old piggyback cars that was refurbished too. One from Baltimore, Ohio. And I forgot that they did trailer service. Coordinated rail truck routes from coast to coast. In a minute we'll go to the other side. We'll check out some of the other equipment as well. Now we come down on the caboose up here. And we're going to actually take a look at some signals here in just a few minutes. Now we'll come to the other side and take a look at some of these passenger cars that you're seeing here. Here's a camp car built for the Baltimore, Ohio. And now we're getting ready to get into some of the nitty-gritty. The MOW train. As you can see here, we have some trucks that probably came off of some cars that are sitting on this flat car. These are probably just came off of an old locomotive. And there's another B&O engine over there that we'll get to in just a minute. And here we're coming up on this big heavy-duty crane. As you can see, there's the big heavy-duty crane with all sorts of acetylene torch, just basically spare parts and trucks and old ties that the crane would pick up. And look, here's the crane. It was built in May 15th, 1958, so it's an old one. I'm still glad a lot of these cranes are still around in the museums nowadays. As you can see here, here's a gondola. And let me get behind here and I'll show you what they've done to it. See, this is possibly a piece of rail, and what they did was they took an acetylene torch and just literally just cut out the back ends of the gondola so the crane can actually pull the beam up and put it inside the gondola. So that's what they did there. So they did a nice job of it too. So now we'll get down to another piece of machinery here. It's an old SW2 switcher built by EMD, number 633. You see, the paint on this scheme is worn down. This should be the SW2. These were built in probably about the 50s. So that's the work side of the train. Now we're ready to go to this. These are one of the bud cars up here. As you can see up here, there's lots to this yard too. Look at this. One of these speed liners. These are pretty cool. They used to have a cab car at each end. The engineer would come up in here and operate the train, and the train never had to turn around. So that was a big plus nowadays and today. Some more of the old Baltimore, Ohio passenger cars. And some Chesapeake and Ohio cars that you will also be seeing. The Chesapeake and Ohio, in fact, used the same scheme as the B&O, but their logo said C&O for Progress. And they're both pre-seaters of chassis. So now we come on down, we'll take a look at some of these old coaches. And there is another engine up here too. The museum inside, in fact, opens in just a little bit, so I'm outside doing some of the outside experiments while I'm just killing some time. This is pretty awesome. And now we're coming up on, looks like another GP40 up here. It sure does look like a GP40. There's another B&O engine up here that I'm walking up. 7402 is the number. Let's take a look. It's an SD35. It's pretty sweet. Oh man. Take a look at that, YouTubers. An SD35. I have never ever seen one of these before. I'll back up and let you get the really good view of this. As you can see up here where these little electrical caps are, these would where the ditch lights would go. But, you know, back in the day they didn't have these, and the horn was always above the cap. And plus you're not seeing that anymore because the horns have actually been moved back. So, and those did not have the ditch lights, but that's the SD35. And I think we can walk around the other side and we're going to see what else is back there. And that's some of the museum exhibits we'll get to in just a little bit. Oh yeah, here's more stuff back here. Man, lots more switchers too. A Western Maryland Alco switcher. Lots of old boxcars and hoppers and old steam engines. That's a super flat boy. That's a low boy. That's a pretty interesting car right there. And now we're coming up on a Western America. I think this is an Alco T2 switcher. Let me take a look at it. It's Western Maryland number 195. It's an Alco DS23. It kind of looks like an RS3 switcher, but it's a DS23. Radio equipped at number 195. The original Western Maryland paint. Let you take a look at that one here for a second. Really pretty. Then they came out with the red and white paint scheme, which is probably one of the best. And over here, looks like to be an Alco S1 switcher, it looks like. It's another couple of these switchers. I don't know what that is. I'll back up so you guys can look at it and determine what it is. So if anybody knows about that switcher, please let me know on that. And here's another one of those switchers. Kind of look like a box. More passenger cars. Baltimore and Annapolis Railroad. This is like one of these little industrial switchers where they'd used to move stuff around in the industrial yard. These are pretty sweet. I think EMD actually built these. And of course we have to come up on a steam engine. It's one of the first ever editions of the Freedom Train. Now that's pretty awesome because I have wanted to find this original one. And I think it was first brought up by the B&O. And I'm just not sure. But there's the first edition of the Freedom Train. That's pretty legit. So that's pretty much the outside exhibit. That's pretty much all I can do right now until the museum opens. So this is the outside portion, and we'll come back in just a little bit and we'll go inside. Alrighty, we'll be back in just a little bit. This is Engineer Pat saying this concludes part 1, and we'll see you guys in part 2. Alright, we'll be back in just a little bit.